Have you taken a moment to consider all the financial aid opportunities offered through FAFSA? Today, I will discuss why the current requirements to claim dependency and independency through the FAFSA website do not need revision and provide a significant amount of aid across the nation. As someone who's been a community and four-year university student, both online and in person, I noticed that completing the FAFSA application significantly increases my opportunities for financial aid and streamlines further aid opportunities to schools I apply to. I'll be discussing the multiple opportunities universities offer to aid students with financial expenses, how FAFSA's current application system properly categorizes students as independent and dependent, and why altering FAFSA would not allow for an equitable distribution of funds through students, as well as funds to universities to make upgrades to their campuses and technologies. The main concerns addressed in the policy were that school must take on an incredible financial burden. There's an unequal distribution of aid caused by the current FAFSA setup, and that universities would have to alter their funding to provide more financial aid. It has been argued that there are many roadblocks for students to continue their education due to expensive college and flawed allocation of funds. The causes previously stated were that universities often charge students fees even if they are not utilizing all the campus services. FAFSA's current setup incorrectly classifies students as dependent and dependent based on narrow online form, which in turn leads colleges to factor in potentially false information when distributing additional aid. To remedy any discrepancies in the distribution of aid, it has been suggested the FAFSA application be altered to include more extensive sections for guardians and students to input their financial information, as well as any financial assistance they're giving or receiving. This change is also stated not to jeopardize any future potential grants and scholarships offered to students if they or their parents do not complete the FAFSA application. The main cost presented were that colleges across the nation would need to alter their process for reviewing applications and distributing aid, with potentially more students being considered independent and more aid being given towards them. There'd be less aid offered to honors, students, and athletes. It was also suggested that universities cut down on renovations and upgrades to allocate more aid to students. I've just gone over the flaws mentioned in the current FAFSA application and how students struggle with unreasonable financial obligations at a young age. Now I will explain why the current FAFSA application benefits more students and how students struggle with and why the proposed policy would not effectively assist in distributing aid. Altering FAFSA dependency questions would leave too much room for errors, potentially resulting in misrepresentation of financial needs and receiving too much aid. As it currently stands, the FAFSA application is a streamlined process to report income and living situations to receive government aid. Most students applying right out of high school are considered dependents. While it was previously argued this jeopardizes students' chances of receiving aid, the FAFSA website states that if you're a dependent student, it doesn't mean your parents aren't required to pay anything towards your education. This is just a way of looking at everyone in a consistent manner. The current application considers parents' income from the previous year, family size, and situations such as homelessness or students having dependents of their own. Additionally, for those with more complicated family relationships, FAFSA advises students to fill out the FAFSA form and then immediately get in touch with the financial aid offices at the college or career school you plan to attend. There is a common misconception that students who have their financial needs met and their parents do well salary-wise will not be considered for much or any financial aid. However, even if you do not receive any aid from the government, colleges still use this information to distribute scholarships and awards such as the Cal Grant and the Golden State Award. As stated on the Cal State University of San Marcos's website, over $150 million in financial aid was awarded to CSUSM students last year. Some of this came from FAFSA and some of it was distributed in need-based scholarships and awards. The bottom line is FAFSA aids in streamlining the process for their financial aid opportunities to be distributed by collecting information regarding finances. If dependency questions change, students may begin to misrepresent their living and finance situation to receive more aid. An example would be a student whose parents do not assist them with tuition expenses, but are covering the cost of on-campus housing and car insurance. It would be unreasonable to factor in these specific circumstances, as it would be incredibly costly to have staff overlook such detailed information. I've just gone over how the current setup for FAFSA provides opportunities for students to represent their financial situations and how altering such applications could lead to misrepresentation and unequal distribution of funds. Now I will discuss resources have to make cost-effective decisions regarding pursuing a higher education. It has been debated that students don't have adequate resources for financial planning and transfer opportunities. I'd like to demonstrate how there are an abundance of resources available for high school, transfer, and returning college students to make cost-effective decisions. High school and transfer students have many resources for college planning at their disposal. On cacollegepathways.org, 4 links are listed: Foster Youth Educational Planning Guide, californiacolleges.edu, CSU Planning Guide, and A through G courses. CA College Pathways states that californiacolleges.edu link includes an online course planning tool that students can use to track their high school courses and upload them automatically into their college applications. The other links assist with grade and course qualifications needed for CSU and UC school, as well as providing helpful information for foster youth. In addition to these online resources, many high schools have added a college planning course. At San Diego Academy, a course is offered for second semester juniors and seniors called College Applications. This course encourages students to research qualifications needed to be accepted into schools they're interested in, invite speakers on campus to discuss community college benefits, and encourages students to track their academic progress. Furthermore, there are college admissions counselors available at community colleges and four-year universities. When looking at the CSU website, there's an abundance of information provided for freshman transfer students, cost of CSUs, and more. I just explained how there are an abundance of resources for students looking into furthering their education. Now I will cover ways in which student fees provide opportunities for education and campus services. It has been suggested that colleges cut back on funding for resources such as building upgrades and technical advancements to provide students with more financial aid. However, cutting back on certain programs and advancements would not be a reasonable solution, as there are many resources that greatly benefit students that need funding. Thankfully, mental health is a topic that is gradually becoming more openly discussed. This, however, doesn't negate the fact that many college students face mental health struggles such as anxiety and depression. According to Mayo Clinic Health Systems, young adults are increasingly faced with negotiating America's culture of hyperachievement and the pressure to be effortlessly perfect. As a result, their mental health and well-being are suffering. Furthermore, up to 44% of college students reported having symptoms of depression and anxiety. Cutting back on services for mental and physical health would be a huge setback in providing support to young adults. Aside from healthcare services, there are other fees such as athletics and online course fees that offer opportunities for students to engage on campus with their peers and continue their education remotely. We consider the proposed policy of reallocating those fees and redistributing donations. We need to realize that this would jeopardize funding for online platforms, funding for student clubs, and advancement in technology. A library renovation was discussed previously and suggested those funds be allocated to financial aid. However, the Hayden Library renovation allows access to 3D printing programs, open lab sessions, secure lockers, and private study room. It also reduced the library annual energy cost by 47%, and low-flow fixtures aim to reduce demand for portable water by 37%, according to asu.edu. To wrap things up, the current FAFSA setup adequately collects financial information and effectively allows for colleges and other scholarship opportunities to calculate aid. High schools and colleges have increased their support and information offered to provide insight into qualifications needed to apply to transfer schools. Additionally, campus fees are utilized to enhance students' learning opportunities and overall well-being. The current standard for distributing government and financial aid to students in college for collecting financial information allows for sufficient and equal distribution of aid. There's no need to alter the FAFSA and application process. I highly suggest everyone to complete a FAFSA form to reach out to college finance offices directly if you have unique circumstances, so they can guide you to maximize your aid opportunities.